Hey, hey. So you've got some questions about dry suits for me.
Yep. Yeah, I got a list.
Lay it on me.
Well, first question. How is a dry suit different from a wetsuit other than being dry on the inside?
Seems very scripted, Daniel. Um, it's not, I guess.
Are you sure?
Um, well, yeah, of course it's different. Um, Theoretically, in a dry suit, you don't get wet. Um, it sort of expands a little bit. Yeah, you're dry on the inside of a dry suit, whereas you're wet in a wetsuit. And in a wetsuit, you have like a insulating layer of water as opposed to an insulating layer of air, which you would have in a dry suit. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. So, in a properly fitting wetsuit, you shouldn't get convection of water sort of moving your heat away. Should keep a nice thin layer there to help keep you warm. And
But
with a dry suit, it's like gas.
you'll have a thin layer of water or air, depending on which one you're wearing, but you will still lose warmth over time.
No, it's not perfect. Yeah.
It's inevitable with no matter what you're wearing, pretty much.
Well, I guess what are the advantages of wearing a dry suit other than looking cooler?
If you got too much money, it'll take some money away from your bank account. That's probably a good one. Um, so when you start going deeper, if you are wearing a wetsuit over time with the pressure increases and decreases on the wetsuit will actually lose its warmth because it will lose the bubbles that are in the neoprene won't bounce back as well after you know going deep and going shallow, going deep, going shallow, and therefore that the wetsuit will shrink as in its millimeterage, which will then make it bigger on you, which allows more water to flow in between. So a wetsuit, if you're doing deep dives, won't last nearly anywhere as long as a dry suit will last. With a dry suit, you don't have any of that, meaning that it's not impacted by the outside pressure on the
Yeah, and I think
material. I mean, just on the material.
yeah, but then even within a dive with a new wetsuit, you're going to get a change in buoyancy, aren't you? As those bubbles
Yeah,
compress.
as you start going down, those bubbles will compress, meaning that as you go down, you will become less and less buoyant if you're wearing a wetsuit.
Yeah, which means you have to adjust it, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so
dry suit.
you have to put more gas into the dry suit as you're descending, and release the gas as you're ascending.
Yeah, so it's
But
sort
but
of
the
a
suit
bit more
itself, like the
constant.
materials of the suit, won't affect buoyancy. But obviously the gas inside will.
Yeah. Um, would the thermal characteristics change as those bubbles in a wetsuit get smaller? I haven't thought about that before, but it just occurred to me that if the suit's getting squished, it might not insulate as well.
100%.
Hmm.
It shrinks.
Yeah, I guess, and then it gets maybe a bit looser on you. Well, it
Yeah,
does it
so
over
that's how
time,
come
but
it gets colder is because it gets looser on you, and more water. It's not as tight on your skin. More water gets in, and therefore you get colder because you have a more water flow.
yeah, makes sense. Um, so there's different types of dry suits, isn't there? What are the common uses for each type?
Um, so you sort of have three main. ones, I guess. You have a bilaminate, a trilaminate, and a neoprene. Um, Neoprene and trilaminate are most popular, and I would say trilaminate is the most popular. So tri, then neoprene, then bi. And normally the neoprene dry suits are used in colder environments because there's a lot of organic warmth and insulation that comes from the neoprene itself. So you have organic insulation from the actual suit, whereas you don't have that with the bilaminates or the trilaminates.
Yeah. So you have to add like undergarments to a tri-laminate suit for it to have much insulation.
Yeah, but you would normally add undergarments as well to a neoprene.
Yeah, it's just
It's
there's
not
more
like you're
built
wearing
in.
shorts and
Yeah.
t-shirt and then putting the suit on and you're perfectly warm. It just has more organic warmth.
Yeah. They all have seals. There's like different types of seals, but I'm wondering why would you get anything other than silicon these days?
For a few reasons. I much prefer silicon on everything. However, the downsides to having silicon is that you pretty much always have to have a ring system on your suit. And with the ring system, it makes your wrist wider. And some people want the small, sleek hand as opposed to like having their wrist wider so they can get their hand into more places. There's also, if you are a petite person, small frame, and you have, let's say, a changeable neck seal, the neck seal itself, normally the most common one is made from Cytec. I think it's called Quick Neck. And it has a fixed size. It doesn't come in two sizes. And on petite people, sometimes that seal can come too far out on the shoulders, which means it's directly underneath the harness. So as you're walking to the water or whatever, you have the harness pushing on the neck seal, which is then pushing onto your shoulder bones. So some people don't like that. And some people, for example, want neoprene seals, which you can't get with, like a ring system or a quick neck. Actually, I tell a lie. I think Waterproof do one where, you can actually get like a changeable seal that's made from neoprene.
Yeah.
But I
I think
haven't
I
seen any
heard somebody
photos.
say for neck seals they preferred neoprene because it helped keep their neck warmer. I don't know if that's true because I don't really
Well, it
know
does
anything
because
about
you have
seals.
the insulation from the neoprene.
Yeah.
I've never had a cold neck. I think a lot of that comes with hood. If you have a good hood, you don't have a cold neck. If you're a bad hood, you have a cold neck.
Oh. How does the hood like work with the dry suit? Does it sit over the top or does it like tuck in somewhere?
So there's a lot of dry suits that have a different way of doing it. Some you have like a short neck, so it sort of goes to here, roughly. And then there is like a neck system that you can sort of wrap around it a little bit. And then you have hoods with bibs, which you can then tuck into that neck all the way around. But yeah, so The hood obviously doesn't go underneath the seal, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
No, not at all.
You would not be happy if you got in the water like that. Yeah, okay. So a dry suit's good for all levels of diving because they're definitely popular with tech divers, but uh, you don't see them on recreational divers in Queensland, I think. But I don't know if it's different elsewhere.
It's due to the water temperature. So if you're looking at everywhere that's cold, which Queensland isn't, despite what people in Queensland will tell you. So take, for example, here in Amsterdam, I think our water temperature at the moment is like probably 10. And we are in, almost the end of April, 3/4 of the way through April. In our coldest, it's about 2. And in our warmest, it's like 24, 25 or something. But that doesn't last for very long, and that's only at the very shallow area. So if you go deeper than like 10 meters or 12 meters, it drops to single digits again.
Oh, okay.
So I think geographically, it depends. Say most cold places, a lot of people have dry suits. And in the warmer places, they don't, because they don't need it.
Yeah. Are they doing it in their open water, or are they getting dry suits after open water?
You can do both. You can do an open water course in a dry suit. And I think all the major agencies have allow for that to happen. Normally with, like a bit of an orientation with the dry suit. So I think they all have that option to do them. And again, it depends, on your geographical location. Here, most of them all year round are in 7mm wetsuits to be in the water. And then the diving only starts now. April, May, and finishes in October, November. And that's the season.
Well, it's not too bad.
But I think, if you probably go to Scandinavia, for example, probably they would do their open water courses in dry suits all year round.
Oh, what choice do they have? Here it's pretty cold there.
I would much rather be in a dry suit than in a 7mm.
Yeah, because it's, when it's thick, it's hard to manipulate your fingers and move your arms and maybe reach back and grab a valve or anything like that.
The amount of movement that you lose in a 7mm is just astronomical. So I would much rather be dry than in a 7mm.
So, what are the basics of actually diving a dry suit? Because you mentioned before that, you're putting gas in as you go down, you're letting it out as you come up. Is that the basic mechanics, or?
What, putting gas in as you go down, gas out as you come up? Yeah, that's pretty much the mechanics.
It's like a BCD, but like wrapped around you in a way. Except for you're not really meant to use it like a BCD.
You shouldn't use it for buoyancy. There's a lot of organizations that teach you to use it for buoyancy, and that they teach you to use it as your primary source of buoyancy, and that's just asking for disaster. So you need to put minimal amounts of gas in it. Enough so that you're comfortable, not enough so that it's unmanageable, which is a bit of an art and takes time.
Yeah, so sounds like there might be some hazards to diving dry suit. What are they?
Having too much gas.
Yeah.
Having too much gas or not enough gas, or no gas at all. They're basically your 3 hazards. Like that girl in America that died a couple of years ago, I think it was now. She didn't have any form of gas going into her suit at all, and that's just asking for disaster. So she had no gas, pretty much unrecoverable. Not enough gas, meaning that you get cold. You can still freely move and everything, but you're getting too cold because you don't have enough gas. The suit is too close to your body and you don't have enough gas to provide that insulating layer. And too much gas, meaning that the gas is floating around everywhere within your suit and getting to places where you don't want it to be, that's impacting your buoyancy, such as your feet, your legs, etc., etc.
Ah, I heard about a thing called suit squeeze. How does that happen? Does it happen?
That's not enough gas or no
Yeah.
gas. So the suit squeeze is basically, I don't know how you'd sort of explain it, something like a vacuum pack bag, and you go and buy something and it's vacuum packed. As you go down, that pressure increases, which, shrinks all of the gas that's inside your suit. And then you end up exactly like in that vacuum pack bag, where no matter how much you push on the outside of the packet, you can't move the goods around that are inside. It's exactly the same principle.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other extreme is too much gas, and I hear people are afraid of getting flipped upside down because it rushes to the feet.
And that comes from too much gas, and it comes from, in some cases, learnt bad behavior. As in, they, learnt to use a dry suit as their primary source of buoyancy. And yeah, that's what they learnt. So, and then it got away from them.
Yeah. There's drills to help recover from that, though, isn't there?
Yeah, you certainly learn a lot of drills to counter for that, but there's only so much countering you can do.
Yeah, if you're rising quick, I think you'll be in
If you're
trouble.
already on the way up and you have way too much gas and it's in your feet, the chances of you getting it out quickly before you hit the surface, because every sort of centimeter you rise, that buoyancy is changing. That gas is getting bigger.
Yeah, it's a race.
And it's a very hard race to win.
Oof. So,
So it comes from learnt bad behavior, I think, is probably the most dangerous thing in dry suit diving. People do crazy stuff to try and counter that. I've seen dry suits with, dump valves that are on the feet, on the calves. I've seen dry suits with dump valves that are on the wrists. I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff to try and counter poor training by modifying the gear.
yeah, I've heard about wrist dumps. Sounds like a pretty funny solution. Imagine putting your hand up to dump air.
I
Hi.
mean, there's probably a time and a place, but I would think it's probably more suited to commercial diving or something where the suit needs to be a certain way or whatever. It was probably stolen from some very practical reason that it was done, and then brought into recreational being fun diving, whether it's technical or recreational levels or whatever, brought into fun diving where it shouldn't be there.
Oh, I guess they're having fun waving. Yeah. Dump valves. So you can like wind them out or wind them in, and that changes how gas is dumped off. So it seems to me like you'd want to just wind it out, as much as you can, so that way it's harder to build up extra gas.
So I dive with mine wound to the softest setting, meaning that I can get rid of everything. It's as soon as gas touches it, the gas comes out. Um, Maybe on some situations, especially if I'm doing like long deco, I'll put like maybe 1 or 2 clicks on my dry suit dump valve, just so that I can run slightly more air to stay that little bit extra warmer while I'm super stationary. But still, if the gas touches it and I raise my arm, the gas comes out. Again, I think that most people should dive it fully open, because it takes away something that you have to think about. You don't have to think about whether it's open or closed. All I have to do is raise my arm and gas is going to come out. The people that dive with it closed are normally those that are using their dry suit for their primary buoyancy, and they use it for their primary buoyancy, then it can't be open because the gas is going to touch it all the time. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So
Yeah, it
they
makes
dive
sense.
with it closed. So then they always have to push on it to release the gas.
Do you get much more like leaking through the valve when it's fully open?
I don't get any.
Okay, so good valves don't suck.
Um, but I also service mine. It is like a thin piece of rubber that's in there, the same as like on the diaphragm of your second stage regulator, and stuff gets stuck in there. So you have to clean them. Warm water, wash them out, and the if you're diving salt water, then salt crystals and stuff like that. So you just have to take care of them, maintain them, look after them.
Yeah, I think in Australia, if you leave it in a hot car, it might screw with it a bit.
That's the thing.
Is it,
There's a lot of
you
people
know,
that don't look after their dry suits appropriately. I'm pretty rough on my gear in general. I guess I go through a suit every 2 years,
that's
and
expensive.
I treat it pretty rough. But I think that it's also stored in a good way. And I think if you're living in a hot country, you definitely have a lot more to worry about than if you live in a cold country.
Yeah. Um, Flooding probably isn't that big of a deal from what I gather. Like, you can get really cold, but you're probably not going to sink. Is that right?
That's correct. Water's
Yeah.
water. So yes, you get wet. Yes, the dry suit will fill up full of water, but you got to remember the outside is water. You're not going to sink just because you got water. Everything is water. So you're not going to have, obviously you're going to lose the buoyancy that's inside your suit if you have a proper flood or a proper rupture. So any gas that's inside your suit, you're going to lose the buoyancy from that when it leaves, which you'd counter with your wing or your BCD or whatever. But you are not going to descend into the depth uncontrollably. It's going to be painful when you hop out of the water because you're going to be very, very, very heavy because your suit's going to be completely full. And you're going to have heavier, undersuits also going to be probably drenched. I've been fully flooded many times. And yeah, you get colder and you're heavier, but it depends how bad the flood is, of course. But if you have good undersuits, you still generally stay relatively warm.
Yeah, because I guess if you're lucky, it'll start acting kind of like a wetsuit, just stopping the convection.
You will still have some warmth from your undersuits.
Yeah.
Again, if you have good undersuits, but it's just not very comfortable.
Yeah. So there's like diving undersuits, and then there's, maybe thinner stuff that you can get away with if you're in a hot climate. Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure like what I'm going to use in Queensland because it can get bloody hot, especially in summer. And I'm
Well, you
just
always
the
need to
idea
wear
of
something wicking.
yeah,
So something that's going to draw that moisture away from your body. You need that, or else you're just gonna get a rash or chafe or whatever, and that's not fun. So, I wouldn't wear tights, for example, or I wouldn't wear, some type of lycra unbreathable materials. I'd wear something wicking, 100%, to get that moisture away from your skin.
ooh, it'd have to be bloody brilliant stuff to deal with my sweat. I can sweat through leather boots, but yeah. Anyway,
But still, you have to wear something wicking, or else you're just gonna get that chafe, and there's really nothing you can do about it. If you're stuck into a dive that's however long with decompression, or some obligatory time like a cave dive, it's not like you can just hop out, get out of the
yeah,
wet stuff. It's not possible.
yeah, you're just gonna have to get through it.
So you want to have your gear set up to limit as much, limit that happening as much as possible.
I had a thought about doing like shore dives where it can be a bit rough in and out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not kind of worried about the seals holding while I'm getting in and out of a bit of a rough entry or exit. You reckon that's an issue, or is it
What do you
pretty
mean the
secure?
seal's holding?
Well, just because you might be getting in awkward positions, you might be have gear pulling at you and rolling or to the side, or I don't know, something like that. That just sort of maybe pulls the seal off where it wants to sit.
I've never had an issue. This is another selling point for me for silicone seals, however, or changeable seals. There's quite a few people I know that have latex seals on the, or even neoprene, and over time they stretch. And once they stretch, they don't fit as snug to your like your wrist, for example. One of the common things you hear people say is, "Yeah, I make a wrist." They get that channel that runs up their arm, and water leaks in. I can pretty much guarantee you that those people have latex seals.
Okay, I thought latex would be nice and soft, and so it would conform to that better, but no.
No, the silicon is much nicer. Again, if you stretch that silicon, then you can just throw it away and put a new one on within seconds. I think I could do a full seal change on my suit, so change all three seals in under a minute.
Hmm, it is really quick.
So, again, it depends on the types of system that you have, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, with the latex seals, for most people, they have to send their suit away somewhere to get the seals changed. Then they've got at least 24 hours once it's there for it to be cured, for the glue to cure and get back to you. So I never worry too much about stuff getting in through my seals. It's never been an issue for me.
Okay, that's good. Well, I mean, another way to look at it is, people definitely wear dry suits cave diving, so that's often a pretty rough activity and getting in and out, it can be rough, and they don't seem to have an issue.
Again, it depends on what type of suit you have. If you have like a paper thin suit that's really light, then of course you run the risk of tearing your suit or something.
Yeah, but
Whereas
you get that even with a
if
wetsuit.
you have a really heavy duty suit, you probably have a less chance.
Yeah. Um. So, are there skills you should practice in regards to dry suits? Like, is there something that every time you go in, you should, if you got time, you should maybe focus on?
Trim. I know it's
Okay.
probably what everybody always says, but if you're in a good position with the dry suit, then everything's going to be easier for you. It's going to make it easier for you to get the gas out. It's going to make it easier for you to control the gas in the suit. I think trim is a really big one.
Yeah.
If you're wearing dry gloves, then manipulation of things is a good one to practice. Dry gloves obviously take away the dexterity in your fingers. So practice your clipping. Practice feeling for things. Practice getting your SPG off from wherever it is and putting it back. Practice, regulator swaps, out of gas drills. All of these things, because things sit differently in a dry suit. Practice taking off the inflator hose for your dry suit and putting it back on again. Things like that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, you mentioned.
But that's primarily relating to wearing dry gloves, huh?
Yeah.
Because I will wear wet gloves from as soon as I can. As soon as the water allows me to be in wet gloves or no gloves, that's where I'm at, even though I'm diving dry. So, yeah, that's what I want to achieve. I want to make sure that I can do everything that I can while wearing gloves that I can do without. And the only way to do that is to practice, to feel, to make sure that everything is where it should be. I think that's what a lot of people forget about, is that they put those big thick gloves on and then think everything's going to be as easy as it is without gloves. It's not.
What, it doesn't make clipping easier? Yeah. Though, you make it a challenge. I think getting stuff in and out of your pockets seems like it'd be pretty hard with thick gloves. That'd be another thing.
But I think if the suit fits, the pocket's where it's at. But again, that's a lot to do with clipping. It's a lot to do with the dexterity that you have within the gloves. And if you don't practice, you're not going to be good at it.
Yeah. Oh. So just going back just a touch, sometimes you got to be out of trim, if inside a wreck or a cave or something. How do you deal with that? Because that's not optimal with the dry suit.
If you are running the correct amount of gas, it's a non-issue.
Oh, okay.
If you're running too much gas, it becomes an issue. A part of being in trim is, getting your body to where it should be and learning on how to, manipulate your body into being to where it should be. And if you have the right amount of gas, going head down to go through something isn't an issue because you can self-correct. If you have way too much gas in your dry suit, then it's going to be an issue and you run into problems. So yeah, that comes from gas management.
Okay. So it's still same thing, just don't have too much gas and it should work.
Yeah.
Or else you go head down and it'll rush to your feet or something like that.
Yeah, when you come back and you level out again, you may have to come out of perfect trim and extend your legs and move any gas that may be caught in your feet or your calves back up into the chest, torso portion of the suit. But it's super quick, super easy.
Yeah. So you just like try and drop your knees.
Not
Is
drop
that
your
the
knees,
idea?
just extend your legs.
Okay, just make it level so it can even out. Okay. Some bonus questions. If you could go back in time to when you were getting your first dry suit, what advice would you give yourself?
Pay the extra money and get it made to measure.
That was the other bonus question. Tailored versus, custom.
I am yet to meet anybody that doesn't need some type of adjustment. So I think you should always get adjustments on your suit. I think an off-the-shelf suit fits very few people. And I only deal with Santi suits. And, they have a free of charge, small adjustment included in their price.
Yeah,
So
it was
you
like
can adjust
3 of them, right?
I think it's 5.
Oh, 5. Oh, cool.
4 plus negative 5 centimeters, something like that. So there is some adjustments there that are not going to cost you anything extra. You have to wait for the suit, of course. It has to then be made at the factory with those adjustments. So they don't just take a suit that's off the shelf, sit down in front of a sewing machine or whatever and restitch it. They actually make it from scratch with those adjusted measurements. So I think that is probably the biggest piece of advice. Probably the second would be to get a P-valve installed from day one. I think there's a lot of problems that happen due to dehydration. Getting a dry suit on and off is a long, sometimes painful process. And yeah, I think it's just nice if you can relieve yourself, whether you're male or female. I think it's worthwhile getting. That way you can just stay hydrated without, any thought in your brain about being annoyed by having to get undressed to go to the toilet.
Yeah. Even if it's just the time that takes. I get headaches pretty easy.
And effort.
Yeah. Wow. That's all the questions I have. Unless there's something else you want to add?
I don't think so. I think that's about all.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it.
Cool. I'll see you later for the next set of questions.
Oh, no, I have to make more questions. All right. All right. See ya.
All right. See ya.